have to introduce the show. It is 8 o'clock. Welcome to the Beaver Network. We are the Undammed. I am Zen and this is Urban, and we are not, this is not our regular scheduled program. We are stepping in tonight for Treaty Bird. She had to go somewhere else, and yesterday we missed our show spot, so we thought we'd come in and do this tonight as a special ad bonus, whatever. So yeah, we're here to talk about the unhoused, and if we will open up the floor in a few minutes, but we'll start off with just a little bit about what we do and stuff like that. So for anybody that's new here, we run an outreach program. We are in St. Catharines, Ontario. We have been doing this for almost 2 years now. Hey, Tammy. It's been 2 years or 3 years?
It's been
3 years.
It's about 3 years.
It's been 3 years.
Yep.
I'm like, that was wrong. So yeah, we started back in the COVID area of lockdowns, and we were watching the people on the streets and wondering what they were doing to get help, because we were struggling and we couldn't imagine what they were going through. So now we go out and we feed them and take them clothes and blankets and socks and everything you can imagine that they need, right down to chapstick, and sometimes we'll take out treats. We'll get donations of candy and chocolate bars.
You're done.
Take donations. Have a website. We do have a website.
Well, we did. No, we don't have a website.
Okay, all right. Okay, we don't have a website anymore. We've been going through changes ourselves personally, so we just moved. So it's been kind of a crazy time in our life.
Yeah.
But yes, we do have we do take donations on our PayPal, which is on my page, which is called Zen. It's Canada Flag Zen. Yeah, we got to figure out some way of doing that.
And
trying to work it into
all
here.
of the money we get in donations goes to the unhoused in one way or another. Yeah. Sometimes we can, get cheap socks or something. Mm-hmm. And so we buy them all.
We go to the thrift stores. Some of the thrift stores actually help us out. They will give us a certain amount for free, and some of them will be like, okay, we have we have all these yoga mats, and we're like, perfect. Yoga mats are great for them, right?
Yeah.
So, we also
you never know.
Definitely use it for fresh fruit. They love getting their fresh fruit. It's amazing how many people go without having fresh fruit.
It almost sounds silly to say it in a country like Canada.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to say. It's hard to imagine people sleeping rough at all in Canada. I know that we are above and beyond that. I know that we can turn this around. I know that we can. We have to get our politicians on side. We have to. We can write letters, and we can do things like Beaver Network. And
also going to your local meetings, especially if you know that they're going to be talking about the unhoused situation. We strongly try to get people to go out and voice their opinions as far as because there's a lot of talk about NIMBY, not in my backyard, and where to put the unhoused, because it's more manageable for people to be able to get access, the things that they need when they're downtown, whereas people don't want them downtown. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of places that are empty that could be used, parks that haven't been used as parks in a long time, and you want them to be safe as well. So
yeah, I am sometimes disgusted by how many empty buildings we have. And I will say to Zen as we're driving by, like, yeah, there's housing for 15 people.
Yeah.
That's probably half of the beds that are occupied at the Salvation Army, right down the street.
Yeah.
So we have to get our politicians on side with this. We have to let them know it's a crisis, because it has been a crisis since 1988.
Our big push is always for transition housing. We would like to see either transition housing or transition drop-in centers. We are working on getting a hub here in St. Catharines, so hopefully that will come about in the next little while. But transition housing is important. It's important for people that are on the street, that they have somewhere to go and talk to somebody about what are the next steps and what they should be doing. And it's difficult to go from living on the streets for sometimes 4 or 5 years to longer, to going, somebody saying, okay, we have a 1-bedroom apartment for you, and they don't know what to do. They kind of freeze, and they end up back out on the street, and nobody's in that apartment now because they just don't know what to do. They're scared. So yeah, the transition housing is probably one of the most important things. Again, learning about, well, not even so much learning, but getting their ID back that they don't have anymore. Figuring out where they have to go to access the food banks, etc., and health and mental health help. So yeah, it's, there's places like Salvation Army who will help them furnish their apartments. It's, the community itself is wonderful. It's just making people aware of what's out there is number one.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that I know, that I meet, that had no idea that there was centers that would help them out with, things such as getting their ID back.
ID back, yeah. There's a clinic that they have at one of the places downtown, and you can go there and start getting your ID back, because we are talking about people who literally have given up everything.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to have on the show some of the people that we know and help, and I personally consider a friend.
Yeah, we will have them on our regular Sunday show at 12:30 p.m. We'll have some sit down talks with our friends, and we'll maybe go for a little drive and show you what we do. I'm sorry, I'm wearing my bad glasses again.
Lunatic Fringe. And you know what? I'll be honest, man. That sounds like a good idea. Like on paper, it seriously does.
Yeah.
But it opens up a whole Pandora's box of other problems.
And you know what? Some people do. Some people do open their homes, and there's a lot of people who end up back on the street. They leave their stuff with their friends. Their friends store it for them. They just can't live there because there's abuse happening, or there's addiction problems, or there's something happening that they don't want to be involved in. Just imagine having to live with somebody that you don't really like. Like it doesn't always work out. Some people will do it. Like we've met friends on the street that have gone and lived for a year with somebody, and it was one thing that somebody didn't clean the fridge or something, and all of a sudden they're out.
That's it.
They can't do anything because they're not on the lease. They're not. It's difficult. It is like couch surfing, and
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Couch surfing, transitional housing, and shelters are considered hidden homeless. Mm-hmm. Some shelters, sorry, not all, but some shelters are considered hidden homeless. What is hidden homeless? Hidden homeless are the people that are homeless, but they don't show up on the radar because they've managed to find shelter for X amount of days in a row. But they're hidden homeless. It's a much larger problem than I think any one of us wants to admit. And like I said, myself being Canadian, and all my Canadian friends. I mean, we're Canada. We can pull this together. We can talk to our provincial politicians and our municipal politicians, and we can say, hey, you know what? There are some people that need some help. And as long as I'm paying taxes, I would like to help them. And you can start those movements. That's one of the things we're hoping to do, is start that movement. Start that, like, give it the swift kick that it needs.
Just talking to people about it, bringing it up on a TikTok live that you're in, sometimes we'll go for coffees and meet people at the coffee shop and have huge conversations about it, and then all of a sudden we're starting to network with people. So if there's anybody that wants to come up, of course, ask. Guest buttons at the bottom.
And thank you, Amber, for what you do. Amber works in a shelter.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Amber. We've met many people that work in shelters. The people here are fantastic.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it.
And it just, yeah.
It's not something that I could do. I mean, some days I have to, really dig deep to do what we do anyways, because I know that, we're helping these people by bringing them coats and clothes and such.
But we get to walk away.
Yeah,
and
we get to go home.
Working in a shelter, it can be dangerous. It can be exhausting, and trying to have that positive attitude like that. That's that's tough. That's hard. That's
dedication.
It's like being a nurse, or it's just it is dedication.
That's dedication. Like, that's some real shit people got going on there when they can pull off, like, nursing and working in shelters. I'm not saying other jobs aren't wrenching or a little difficult, but I don't know how those people do it. I don't know. It's amazing.
You know what, John Price, you're right. And Sasquatch, talking about the privilege that most politicians have and have never been exposed to poverty, and this is one of the things that we want. We want to see our politicians out, boots on the ground on the street, learning, right? And this isn't like photo op boots on the ground. I mean, like, go out there and talk to them, because they're people and they have wonderful stories, and they're sometimes they are the funniest people that like they have stories that are so outrageous,
so bizarre.
And you're just like, oh my god, I can't, like, it's,
but they're so believable coming from those people.
and knowing what they're going through, seeing the conditions that they're in, seeing why it's so difficult, having it's easier for some people to beg for clothing than it is for them to go and take them to the laundromat, because they don't have the money for soap and the machines. So it's easier for them to just go somewhere and ask for clothing, or dumpster dive, or
exactly, John Price. That's what we were saying earlier.
Okay, Sasquatch.
It's just tons of NIMBY.
Yeah, and
not in my backyard.
But yeah, having them out on the streets, seeing exactly what they're going through. It's not a matter of just driving around and seeing all the tents and the garbage. Like, go and see what it is that they're going through.
Like, they're not violent.
No.
Typical. I mean, I don't know how many tents or whatever shelters I've had to go up to and knock on in the at like 8 o'clock at night when it's dark and stuff, but I'm not afraid. I definitely have no fear of being hurt by anyone.
And we're not saying that it isn't dangerous, because of course it's dangerous.
We take precautions.
We do take precautions, but they are some of the most politest people I've ever met.
Yeah, and the most thankful. And I mean, they're gifted. Like, oh my gosh, some of those people are so gifted.
Mm-hmm.
And they just fell on some hard times. They just had some rough waves they couldn't handle, and all they need is, as Zen was saying, maybe transitional housing. I've heard that a couple of times. People say, they suggest a place that they can start at where they feel secure and safe. And that's why it's so important for them to have those spaces.
Yeah.
Think of how you would feel. That's what I do.
We have, so I was trying to find some information about Doug Ford today, and unfortunately it seems like a lot of the things that were brought up about Doug Ford were back in 2024, and there wasn't a lot talked about in 2025 when it comes to the unhoused, because he did a certain amount of money for tiny homes and things for the shelters and that, to get more beds, etc. And I haven't been able to find anything on it, so I'm gonna have to do some more research. But I do believe that the shelters here, the ones that are in churches, etc., that can only do so much, a lot of them have shut down. They're finding it just too much. They still get donations and stuff, but it's the staffing that's the issue for them, right? It's finding the staff to come. Oh, hold on.
Is there anyone?
I just gotta make sure my volume's up. There we go.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Sorry, I was talking and I'm on mute again. Let's stop doing that. So, what is the topic we're talking about? Tiny houses or?
Just anything really. I just wanted to bring up that I was trying to figure out what it is that is the next step for our area anyways, but I don't know what everybody else's areas are doing. I would love to hear from people across, Canada, and what is happening in their areas.
Um, we have, well, obviously I live in Alberta.
Yeah.
No shocker there. And we have I don't know if it's unused land. Like I know it's treaty territory. So I would have to talk to elders and get them to sign off on it. But what I want to do is I want to be able to plan where we can put housing there so that there's like they're out of the way, it's not too far from like a grocery store, so if they get like assistance or something, they can be close enough to that. And it's just everyone's fighting me on it. They're like, "Oh, that's a scam. You don't know what you're doing." I said, "Well, no, I'd get people to help me with zoning and explain it and break it down to me, but this is something we need to do. You guys don't want them, like you said, not in my backyard, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
this is a way to keep them out of people's backyard, but give them shelter because I think that's what we need to step up and doing because government isn't doing shit. The provincial government isn't doing anything.
Municipal's bad too. The municipal levels are quite
Yeah,
bad.
They are bad.
I'm
Yeah.
from
but
Prince
that's
George.
hmm.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Smarsh. No, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to preface on this. It's so bad in Alberta right now because the provincial government doesn't want to do anything. Neither does the municipal, and that's their job to look
Yeah.
after housing first and foremost. And it
Right.
is in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I've been reading that thing up and down, and there's rights in there that give us the right to housing, the right to
Yes.
healthcare, the right to food, the right to water, the right to medical, and it doesn't seem like they're following the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that's the biggest thing I'm against the
You're,
government for because if you're not giving everybody the same opportunities, then no one should. There should be no one going hungry.
That's right.
Nothing like that. Everyone should
you're
have all
giving
of those
that to,
needs
they're
taken care of.
giving that what you're saying to everyone that's coming into this country that's going for asylum. I am pissed
No,
off.
no, no, no.
Oh
That's
yeah,
not what
I
I'm saying.
have
This is
9 of them
okay,
living on
sir,
in our area.
sir. This has been a problem way before that became a problem. So
Agreed,
that is not
agreed. But they're
okay.
doing it
So
more
when
so
I
now.
no, no, they're
Can
not.
we not
They're
talk over each other, please?
Yes, please.
Let Smarshy talk, please.
Go ahead.
okay. And this has nothing to do with immigration. Absolutely nothing to do with immigration. Because I remember reading papers on government officials asking the federal government at that level to give them healthcare, food, education, medical, everything that we needed. The provincial government said we want to take charge, and after they took charge, everything has gone downhill, took a nosedive completely. It's not about immigration; it's about the lack of care that the provincial government is giving us, and um the lack of humanity they have, because they want to line the pockets with their corporate landlords, but they don't want to line the pockets of people who need it, and they're not raising the minimum wage that needs to be raised because of the inflation that keeps going on. We're getting farther and farther behind. That's what I'm saying. Now I'm done.
All right. I agree with you 100% on that. I'm 63 years old. I have watched my kids go through the school system for the last 16 years and now college and university, and they haven't gone for any grants. Dad here has paid the shot. And I am sick and tired of provincial and federal government stuff, period. I'm out in the bush. I run equipment. I see what's going on, like right up to the 60th parallel with Northern Alberta. I've worked from there to New Brunswick, down to the border of the United States. I do environmental work. And as what I see municipal governments doing is shutting down these farmers because of contaminated land that myself and a group of 36 others have been doing. And the government's coming in and shutting down these farmers, which affects our food prices.
Did you know? May I ask you, if you're considering voting Conservative, did you know that Pierre Poilievre wants to sell off even more of our land to be used by American corporations for
Yes,
AI
I
and
do.
stuff, and it takes a ton of water. So if you are environmentally conscious, and especially in Alberta, you should absolutely be thinking about that. I would
Yeah.
just be very conscious of that, because he wants to allot a lot of water and a lot of land
Yeah.
to
Okay.
corporate investment, and it's American. It's not just the Canadians; it's Americans as well.
I'll tell you this: the amount of Chinese-owned property that is in Canada, these pig farms that I've been cleaning up, the waste ponds from Chinese-owned Canadian land is unreal. If you look that up, I've done 73 of them in the last 8 years.
So the
They
topic
raise
is
it,
about
wreck our land.
homelessness. It's
I'm
not
gonna
really
I'm gonna
immigrant hating.
interject here
Yeah, we're not
because
really hating on immigrants here. This is
Yeah.
a
I'm
yeah.
not
this is
talking
issue of
about immigrants. I'm
homelessness.
talking
No, no.
about the people that have moved here are
Okay.
now
We're not
Canadians.
talking
But do
about
you,
that. We're
what?
talking about
You're talking
homelessness.
about the land.
Excuse
I'm
me. This
letting
is
you
what this
You
know.
is
can start
our
your own live if you want to
yeah.
talk
This
about
is
that. You
our
can start your own
platform,
live, sir.
and now on this platform we care about all humans.
And we're not gonna use people's races to talk about
I'm
them
not.
that
Oh
way.
my
No,
gosh.
no, sir. I understand your frustration just as much as I understand
I'm
everyone
out.
else's frustration.
Okay.
Have a great day. I wish you the best.
Good luck.
Oh, I have luck on my side. It's okay. Thank you very much, though. I appreciate it.
So yeah, I live on the island. I work at a shelter, and as my comment before, like it's absolutely heart wrenching because we have people with special needs that can't even get into a shelter because of what that they can't handle having other people around. So
Okay.
there's no chance of even them getting in.
Yep.
I'm seeing more and more people that are not in addictions and just they can't afford housing. Like more and more and more people. It's craziness.
Yeah.
And there's no place for them to go. Luckily, our place, some of it's live-in, some of it's a shelter, so we can move them into like a permanent spot. But I mean, on the other side, it's hard for them to get out because where are they going to rent, right? It
Yep.
is so expensive out there, especially. I mean, I don't know about the rest of Canada, but Vancouver Island is just wicked expensive.
Can
Oh
I
yeah,
ask?
my
I'm sorry, can
Sorry,
my
I?
can I
mom's
ask?
visiting there right now. It's crazy. My aunt, her son and daughter both have great jobs, and they have never been able to move out. My cousin is, I'm 36 this year, so she's 34, and she is, and even with her spouse who also has a pretty good job, they've never been able to live out on their own. They are in smack dab in Victoria. Don't get me wrong, but they're very level headed. They're great with money. They got used cars. They got help with family for school. They don't have a ton of debt. They're pretty stingy. We both joke about driving our old beater cars, and and I'm in the same boat with them. I'm from Prince George, and before I moved to Mackenzie, I thought I would get on, but of course, there's so many operators with the LNG being finished now that I haven't gotten consistent work. So I haven't really had that smoke and mine job I thought I'd have. I was working 20 hours a day in Prince George. I was training loader operators in the day, and I would plow snow for 12 more hours at night. And I could not get approved for for like a chattel loan or anything, or a line of credit, even for a trailer in a park, let alone a mortgage, because houses in Prince George and your rent prices look like Vancouver. But I was getting paid $21.60 an hour to train loader operators, and they wanted me to travel to, even to the States, Alberta, all along BC, up into Alaska, down into the States, and they wanted me to have retroactive LOA. I'm like, I physically can't afford to do this. Like, I was like, I'm plowing snow, and I can probably do one trip. And I talked to another lady that trained, and I go, how long does the LOA take? She goes, I've waited 2 or 3 months. I go, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent if I do this job. And I'm training equipment operators. I got no student debt. I was driving a 99 Sunfire. I have almost no debt. I had a credit score of 800, and there's no shot at getting into a house. I got no kids. I got no daycare worries. You know what I mean? I got no debt. So why can't I buy a home in Prince George? That's insane.
I want to point out something that you touched on is that 39% of people in shelters are families.
Yeah.
39%.
That's so
This is
hard.
Canada.
Yeah. Can I ask Amber a question? Did you say
Yeah.
Polyev couldn't get into a shelter?
No.
You did. You did. You said special needs.
Oh, special needs. Yes. Sorry.
I'm not going to attack people.
I would like to ask,
I'm not going to attack people.
I would like to ask Amber a question, and then Sparsh, you can go next. You said something about your shelter had live-in and temporary shelter.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, because that sounds really interesting?
Yeah. So we have 2 floors. The bottom floor, they can stay as long as they want. And then the middle floor is drop-in. So they can only, it's from 7 in the evening till 9 in the morning. And they have to be out by 9.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. I thought I'd look into that. Okay.
And we got a total different model too. So we do let people not use in the building, but there's like, we call it the breezeway. It's out back.
Yeah.
So they don't feel isolated, like they can't be around.
Yeah.
Good.
Which is a really awesome that they feel accepted.
Yeah.
I have had people say, like, I've never felt so loved, which is awesome.
That is amazing.
So, yeah.
Okay, so, and just before I let Smarshy go, I do want to say tapping is clapping, and if you'd like to give us any gifts towards helping the Beaver Network, that would be much appreciated. And share the live, please. Thank you.
Share it. Don't hog it.
Okay. I just want to make it a point of view when we're talking about people with disabilities. Can we not try to not demean them? I mean, I know it was funny, and I get it, but I understand how annoying that guy is, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that everybody's still human no matter what.
Yep.
As much as I have to remember that PP is still human and we can't dehumanize him just because we disagree or we don't like his politics. I don't like him as a human being. I think he needs a hug and some sugar. But that's just my opinion.
Marsh,
That's
you always got to be the bigger people.
Because when they go lower, we go higher. It looks better on us to be the better people.
Exactly. And never argue with an idiot, because they'll drag you down to their level and then beat you with all their experience.
Yes, but here's the thing: when they go lower, we go higher. It's a sucky thing. I know I want to go down to their level, but I can't because I don't like filth.
Right.
You're better than that.
I like filth. There's other lives where you can go and be filthy, and I know this is a very respectful and safe place, and I absolutely respect that about the Beaver Network.
Yeah.
And I've got other places where I can get down and gritty, and I go and get my coins there, and I bring them back and give me the bell. Don't you worry, I got you.
You know, the thing is, like, don't want to like overstep and I just wanted to give that piece of advice. I don't control people's language. I just wanted to give that little.
Thank you, Smarsh. That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Marge.
Zibby, did you want to say something? You're muted.
Hold on,
But okay.
I'm
All
still
right.
cooking. Give me like 2 more minutes.
You're still
Okay.
cooking?
I have points to make. Yes, I'm still cooking.
Well, good
No,
for
that's
you.
awesome.
You know the guy that was up here talking about immigration, complaining about
Yes.
it? If you take a look at I think it's the second line of the Treaty Proclamation of 1763, I believe it is. Second line says, opening the land for immigration. So people like
You
him,
don't say.
they tend to forget that this country was built on immigration and
Oh,
founded on
yeah.
immigration.
Yeah,
And if it wasn't, he wouldn't be here.
That's right.
exactly. And he also said that he is like up and working in the bush and logging and stuff. So the fact that indigenous people have shared the resources in the land, not it's very fair to native people. I won't say they just openly shared and gave everything the way it's going. He should be very grateful as someone that was a logger, raised by loggers, and I run equipment. We should be very grateful that we get to enjoy the resources and the riches of this land, and that indigenous people are a little bit more fair than I probably would be if someone was destroying my land. I
Right.
feel like
And not to
Right.
mention, you guys reap the benefit, and again, colonization, people, uh,
yep,
descendants of immigrants also reap the benefits more than indigenous people do. So they
absolutely,
have to be a little more mindful.
absolutely,
I would like
100%.
to say again, if I can, to people that came in new, uh, women leaving relationships are 4 times more likely to end up in a shelter, homeless. 4 times more likely. Again, I say to
What?
everyone, this is Canada. This
Of
is
course.
Canada.
Yes.
Financial abuse is real, and that's a huge part of that abuse is that
Yes.
men know, especially
Exactly.
nowadays, that it's very easy for women to go out and support themselves if they're not being dragged down with abuse. It's hard to go to work if your eyes are punched in. It's easier to keep a woman at home if she's at home with the kids and she can't work, or she can't work full time, or you keep her down financially. That's going to keep her in that home a lot longer because she might have kids to worry about besides just herself. And women worry about going to shelters with their kids. They really do. They shouldn't. There's very good shelters for women and families. And in Prince George, they'll put them in a hotel if there's not a safe spot for them, which is great. But that financial abuse is a huge part of that
Oh,
male
huge.
and female
Yes.
dynamic. That's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of classic, right?
It's
Huge.
power. It's power
Yes.
control. It's control, right? It's
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
Money is power.
And
Yeah.
they use it to beat them down. You'd be nowhere without me. You'd be going on the streets then because you don't have any money, and I support you, and I buy you everything, and it's all psychological and
It
entwined together
is.
to keep them disempowered for sure. That's why I have a blue collar job. Ain't nobody talking to me like that. I'll be like, sweetheart, I work more than you. You better get in the kitchen because I pulled 20. What'd you pull today? So I know you better go make me a sandwich for lunch tomorrow, sweetheart.
Okay. Zibby, you're ready.
Okay, so going back to the tiny house discussion,
Yes.
and I'm gonna say that I'm gonna be all over the place because there's a lot of points that were brought up that I gotta go touch on. Okay, so the problem with tiny homes is the the paperwork in order to have it established, and then you fall into the paperwork of having it insured, right? And this
Yes.
is because of the fact that they don't know how to insure it. So this is one of my goals is to actually I'm pretty sure the real native can correct me if it's not the right section, but I'm pretty sure it's section 81 that gives us the ability to do our own corrections. My plan is to do our own corrections, but where we're building, we are taking people who are about to be incarcerated or who have been incarcerated and build them their own tiny homes, because that is a part of how they start to what we call recidivate, which is just the word
Yeah.
for reoffend. Um, and in that's what my goal is to have us building our own tiny homes, because then that way we remove a barrier and make it so that they are less likely to fall back into the habits that got them there in the first place. And then going to, because I'm also on the island, so something that we've done out here, the last building that I just built is actually low income housing, and housing for addictions.
Right
Those
on.
who are in Victoria will know exactly which building I'm talking about, because it's a 3-phase building that is sectioned off from each section. So phase 1 is for low income people. Stage 2, I'm pretty sure, is for those who are in the process of getting clean, and then like I'm pretty sure the main floor is supposed to be like a kitchen, but don't quote me on
Okay.
that. Like, because of the fact that we it's a rebuild of the shelter that's right in front of it. And that was something that I thought was really cool. But we also need, because of the fact that you can't just take people who are struggling with addiction and who have been unhoused for such a period of time and expect them to come back to quote unquote normal behavior.
No, it's not
Like
going to happen.
societal norms, right? Like, and this is where I love the idea of the building that we just built, because of the fact that it has the ability to guide people through that process. And that's something that I feel like we need to be addressing when we're talking about unhoused, because it's not this blanket statement of let's fix this, because it's not an easy fix. There's
No.
multiple things that we need to be considering when it comes to unhoused people.
Oh, absolutely.
And going to like the financial abuse, this is how I still live with my baby daddy, because I can't afford rent in this town.
Right.
I can't even afford rent for a 1-bedroom,
Yeah.
let alone a 3-bedroom. Because a 3-bedroom, if you're lucky, is $3,300 to start.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
And
That
like
is
for
awful.
a 1-bedroom, you're looking at anywhere from $1,600 to $2,200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even with what I make, even though I don't make horrible money, it's still not enough for rent for one of those places.
Right.
No. And that's sad. I'm sorry about that, ZB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the first. Sorry, it's the
Yep.
Yeah.
second line.
I'm good
of
now.
it's the second line of the Treaty Proclamation of 1763, and right there it says, "Land to be opened up for settlement and immigration." So the people that are complaining about
Yeah.
immigration, this country was founded on it.
Yeah, we didn't really have a choice, so, like,
Mhm.
be kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought my mic was muted.
And let's be real, nobody ever has anything to say when, you've got people that are just immigrating here that are like European and just coming, but they have something to say when people, even European, when people are coming from Ukraine as refugees, they have a problem with that. But Joe can come down from the States and come be a welder and no one says boo. It's like, well, why couldn't he make it in the States?
Yeah.
Some random white guy in a
Well,
trade, but somebody that's in a war-torn country, someone that's a refugee, somebody that is coming out of dire need, or people coming to meet a labor demand that we actually really, really need, which our service sector has, because they've cut all these full-time jobs into part-time, the amount of people needed to run the same positions is huge now, right? And a lot of these people came here, worked those jobs to put themselves through school to be professional, and lots of them plan to stay in Canada. Their dreams are gone. They do not get to stay.
right.
They don't get to stay and continue their life now. They were brought here on a promise of, yep, you can be an engineer or a nurse or a doctor. And it's like, nope, you get to do a year or two of your school. And if you're lucky, maybe we'll let you come back next time as a green card for a student. But as in terms of actually settling down and becoming Canadian, they don't have half the opportunities that European people had when they came and settled here, when Indigenous people were here. So I don't know why they're crying, because, especially as
Well,
a boomer, they done pretty good. I don't know what the hell you're crying about.
and
You had a
and that
resource harvesting job in Alberta as a boomer. You're probably doing pretty good, bud. Helped your kids through school. Even a white person that settled here is probably not going to be able to put their kids through school. So for someone that's at that level of privilege to punch down at other people, it's like, sir, what are you complaining about? It sounds like you're doing quite well. So why are you attacking people that
okay,
are coming here to go to school, or somebody that has less privilege than you? What's the point? Like, what is he losing from that? Absolutely
I
nothing.
It's
I
about.
was
I just want to
right.
bring it back to the unhoused,
Yeah.
away from immigration, if we could.
Yeah. Just
Oh yeah.
I just don't want more people
No,
coming and thinking, yeah.
no, just
But
saying
I
that
would
for
I just want to I want to say something just because it kind of popped in my head right now, and I think it's really interesting. Is that so we've been helping Urban's mom trying to find a seniors home. So I've been, delving into that, and I think it's really a great concept to go with when building a shelter. The concept of some of these homes, because, like Amber was saying, there are different levels in the home, right? Like there are people that need certain mental health helps. There's people that need addiction helps.
Services.
There's and then there's people that they're they need detoxing. They need like it goes from some serious to people who just like they just can't afford to find a place right now, so we need something that's
Mhm.
something to start off with before, and then maybe get somebody to help them go in. But they also have those other programs like crafting club, and just something to keep them busy, and something to maybe make themselves feel proud about themselves. Like I do find that structure might work. And then I'm thinking, when somebody said something about the boomers, I'm like, we have so many senior homes right now because of the boomers. And once they're gone, we're going to have a lot of empty buildings,
Right.
And
My question is, I was reading a stat, and I don't know, like, I don't believe everything I read on the internet, but I was doing a study for just an independent study, and it said that women in domestic violence situations that are needing to go to shelters or something are 4 times more likely to go back, 6 to 7, maybe 8 times before they actually break
It's
the.
7.
Okay, it's 7. Okay, that's
Wow.
what I was wondering because I keep hearing different numbers, and I'm like, what's the actual number, right? That's
It's
my brain.
7, and it's like, so it's to break the pattern of abuse because of the fact that you've built, to derail for a hot second. So I'll bring it back to the unhoused discussion because this is an important avenue for people to understand. So when you are in a domestic violence relationship, obviously this is repeating patterns from childhood, blah 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 blah, but
right,
it is relaxing your nervous system, right? And it's also the fact, like, when you've been so thoroughly abused, you obviously are going to develop some kind of traumatic stress disorder.
yeah,
And I can't diagnose which one a person would have because there's a difference between CPSD and PTSD. Now, with that being said, it's relaxing your nervous system, and that's part of the reason why it takes so long for you to leave. That's
right,
why you keep going back, because you're already in fear, and it's rather being in the fear that you know than the unknown of being in these environments that are foreign to you when your nervous system is triggered.
right.
Yes.
And it's also the fear of being judged, and the humiliation,
Yeah.
which goes along with the stress and anxiety, etc.
And I want to make a point on that too, is that a lot of homeless people have said to me when I've said, what would you like other people to do for you if they could? And I think it was 8 or 10 people said, could we get some acknowledgement? We want to be treated like people. Can they look at us? Can they acknowledge us? So you know what, guys, it's just that easy. Just waving, saying hello to a homeless person as you're going by. They just want people to know that they're out there.
Yeah. And the other point that I wanted to make, like, for those that don't realize how bad it is, so I was trying to get housing while I was in Vancouver for Simon Fraser University. We were told by our staff at the school that we could perform work, for shelter. And then when I would go to shelters or for places that help you with housing, they told me that it's better that I sleep in my car than go to a shelter.
What?
Wow.
Well,
Because of the fact that Okay, so for context, I'm a very clean looking individual who does not do substances.
Right.
Okay.
So when people look at me and I tell them my situation, they're like, do not go to the shelters. You're too
Yeah.
clean to be in that environment.
It's dangerous.
Wow.
Right?
That's still
And we
so
also,
dehumanizing, though.
Yeah.
in Vancouver, we have SRO housing, which is just basically you get a very small room and then you have it's dorms basically for people who I guess would be down on their luck. But SRO housing is like $750 a month, which is way cheaper than a lot of rent in Vancouver, right? And even there, they'll try to steer you away from SRO housing because it is primarily used for those who are struggling with substances.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I have a grape whistle somewhere around my room. I have to find it, obviously. I've got two other whistles that I can just make into a chain. Not a big deal. I've got two different keychains with the pull alarms on them, with the alarms on. I've got everything I need to be safe, and I'm still wondering why we need this to be safe in Canada, of all places.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary.
Well, in talking
And
about abuse, that abuse is very systemic and that goes beyond just, one man and one woman in a household. That patriarchy and that entitlement and that violence that's unchecked, like, you have to think that for hundreds of years, thousands of years, we basically sent young, angry men out to war and they would commit that violent crime elsewhere. And now they're at home and we're not at war and we're stuck with these men that have, basically now they've been given a world where they cannot, financially maybe succeed the way they were told they were going to. They may not be able to find a wife or a girlfriend as easy as they thought they were going to. And they still have that level of entitlement. And realistically, they're almost more angry because of the financial situation that we're in. It's extrapolating that. And that entitlement is everywhere. It may not be if you say you were a homeless woman and you were maybe maybe you weren't able to find shelter or you weren't comfortable and you were sleeping outside. It may not be another homeless person that harms you. We've seen that lots in the media where it can be somebody. Young guys think it's funny to go out with a hat, like go out
Yeah.
and be harmful to homeless people.
Say homeless bad. Yep.
It's true, and the sad thing is that we're always looking at, oh, homeless people are the problem. It goes, they're vulnerable, and if somebody is homeless and they're out in that state of mind, they probably have some pretty serious trauma and mental illness going on. And we're talking about abuse from partners. As someone with borderline personality disorder, I went from my parents' home to a shelter. That's where I went from. And for a lot of women that are abused as adults, that abuse started at home. That started with very unhealthy dynamics in the home. They may have dealt with any kind of sort of abuse. They might have dealt with neglect. We don't know. But as someone with borderline personality disorder, that abuse started when I was like 2. It started long before I was looking at romantic partners. And you don't have a blueprint for what a healthy relationship looks like. And you may not have a blueprint for a healthy female role model that says, hey, you can go out and be independent and go to school or to work and you can take care of yourself. A lot of women do not have that role model and do not have that narrative given to them, right? So it starts even before they're in romantic relationships, right?
And and again, I just want to point out, you made a good point, Sasquatch. Mental health and homelessness are like this.
Oh,
There's
yes.
a
yeah,
reason for that. There's
I
a
was
reason.
sober. I was sober. I got kicked out because I had borderline and I was looking for work, and my narcissistic mother kept pushing my buttons. She probably was aggravating and pushing me in physically in my face for probably 3 or 4 hours before I pushed her. And she said, you can leave or I'll call the cops. And I go, fine, I'll leave. Like anything, I'll sleep outside. And I did for a few weeks, anything to get away from you. Literally, I would break back into the house to feed my gecko and It was, late October, early November in Prince George. I was very, very cold. So I had people pee on me and spill beer on me, and where they seen me sleeping. So I would go home and shower and do a load of laundry while they were at work. And then I would go back out and hang around for the day. And finally I gave up and go, I'm going to AWAC. Like, I can't sleep outside. It's starting to snow. And thank God, like, that place healed me. AWAC absolutely healed me as a person. The support there. My mom worked 2 blocks from me, and she drove past the shelter where she knew I was. And I asked her, I go, hey, I'm starting to look to transitioning to housing for myself. Could you bring the newspaper? Because that's how you did it back in the day, to look for a rental. Well, she couldn't even do that. A lady at the shelter did it on her off time, went and bought a newspaper, came back and dropped it to me and said, let me know tomorrow if you see places you like. And a lovely lady at the shelter helped me get my first rental, right? So the people that work there have more empathy than sometimes the people in your life, which, like, I can't say how much I appreciate outreach work and people going
Yeah.
above and beyond just their work hours, because those ladies really, really did that. They were amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can relate with the BPD and narcissistic mother. And this is the thing is that a lot of people don't even realize that they are in need of mental health because they don't know what's happening with them, right? They just don't understand it. They're not diagnosed. Nobody's talked to them. So yeah, they have no clue what's happening. They just know that something isn't right.
And when you have that dishonest harmony within that narcissistic framework of a family, you are the problem. When you say, hey, I was abused, that hurt my feelings, shh, don't bring it up. It's not a problem. This person can continue to abuse you, do whatever they would like. They can abuse you in any way they want. But if you talk about it, you're the problem. So they're trained to stay quiet, and they're trained to believe that they are somehow the problem and that their mental illness is their own fault. They have a bad attitude. They're angry. They're a problem. They need to just go along with the abuse. And it has worked out better for my siblings because you know what? They got through that and they just kind of sit quiet and take it, and they play both sides of the fence. And I don't put them in the middle of anything. That's not going to help anyone. But it did play out better for them because they were given that love and they were given what they needed as children in that system. They learned to navigate it, and I'm happy for them. I'm glad that they're doing well. But now as adults, I'm seeing the things play out: abuse in relationships, addictions, all kinds of, we're workaholics in our family. We're raised by loggers, and now seeing the way that they have not unpacked. My sister's doing a lot better. My brother should use some therapy, but I'm at a bit of a farther stage of unpacking. So it plays out no matter what. You're damaged by that system.
That's another good point. That there is a slice of the homeless that actually work.
Yes.
They work full-time jobs, but they cannot afford to rent or to buy.
Yeah.
So they go to shelters, but they work during the day, and we knew a few of them, didn't we? Yeah.
They came to the car for food.
I know a few.
I'm just gonna sorry because I had hands up in the comments. I'm just gonna let Zibby take, and then I'm at a Lorazepam next, and then we'll come back up to you, Amber.
I just wanted to say, like, so this is what I call a trauma fortune cookie. The trauma fortune cookie says you are more likely, once you have experienced trauma, you're more likely to have anxiety or depression or develop borderline personality disorder. Along with that, diabetes and an autoimmune disorder.
Me right here with type 1.5 and psoriasis, and I have, what did I just get? Pleurisy in my ribs. Yep. Oh, I'm my whole body. They scan it, and I am absolutely riddled. You are
right because of, like, going back to, like, the central nervous system. Your brain is very much a very good computer, and when you go through trauma, it alters that a little bit depending on the type of trauma you have and how long it goes untreated for. And I don't mean like how long you bled out for.
Right.
We're going to talk about, like, you not acknowledging your own trauma. the more you go on without acknowledging that, is it's like a big wound that has grown and become infected. That's why those who have gone through trauma are more likely to end up being unhoused or struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
Like it's scientifically related.
Yes.
And then the thing is you heal from it, and then because you still have these negative prototypes for relationships, like I was doing so well, and I met my first boyfriend, and he was horrible, lied, he walked out on me while I was miscarrying, he assaulted me until I miscarried, and he walked out on me, and that put me back into a hole further than I've ever been in my life. And only in unpacking that, that's when my autoimmune issue started up, was actually as an adult, because I had no idea of what a normal relationship or a normal partnership looked like. It looked like you support the man, go along with what he's doing. If he treats you like crap, well, he might be supporting you while you're going through school, so you better suck it up because he's paying for stuff right now. And that absolutely decimated me. I will never recover from that ever. I have no children, and I have postpartum depression that still dings when I get assessed, and it's still not healed. And that was 2012.
I gotta say, it
I'm
doesn't
just
matter.
going to interrupt we're going to let Ahmed Lorazepam talk, because we're going to start running out of time before.
Can I quickly just finish my thought?
Yep.
And that is, it doesn't matter if you acknowledge it. If you're not healing your nervous system, that's always going to be an issue for you.
And I was running skidder and loader for 18, 20 hours a day to just keep a roof over my head. And I was like, at least I have a house over my head. So for me, I was working and I had no time to unpack. Even doing it on the phone and at night, I couldn't keep up with my counseling appointments. I had no time for it. That's the sad part, right? I took my work over the healing, and I kept a roof over my head. I've never been homeless again, luckily for me. I'm grateful. But for me, the working took precedent in keeping, and I have exotic animals, so we're not going to be able to take them to a shelter. And I had one last year that was 19 years old. I'm not giving them up. I've had them for over half my life. So that's what I did. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying working was my priority at the time. So
Yeah.
Now let's hear what Lorazepam has. What you got for us?
Hey, I wanted to say hi to you first of all, because it's been a while, and I whenever I see Zen on, I do think about you, Urban,
Thank
and
you.
I really hope that all is well with you.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to say in terms of mental illness and being homeless, it's often like, it's not like a quick fix to take them to the ER and, try and get things back on track. Like, and I just made a video on this earlier today, but it was about the mentally ill, especially if you have a substance use issue, and especially if you are homeless. There is this stigma within the healthcare system that you're looking for a handout, you're just there to play games, you're there for drugs, and then they treat you like, this is how they look at you, and they treat you like crap. And then would you want to go back to a place to get help if that was your experience? Like, probably not, right? And I think that there's, I've heard people say, well, there's assholes in every profession, right? And that's true, there is. But the problem is not about, I don't think the problem is really about jerks that's getting in the way of people receiving help to get their life, more stabilized. I think the problem is that when we hear and see stories of abuse and mistreatment that happens in hospitals to psych patients, and because and this happened to me, I can relate to Zen and Sasquatch. I also have BPD, along with treatment-resistant depression. And sometimes when we do file a complaint of being of medical abuse or medical gaslighting or whatever it be. It's really easy for a psychiatrist to take that diagnosis that person has and to use it against them. Like, oh no, they're just exaggerating, they were high, or oh no, this person's has hypersensitivity, it's just they're manipulating, right? And then it's kind of a he said she said thing between a psychiatrist and someone who's mentally unwell. And like, who do you think they're going to side with if the complaint is formed, right?
Right.
So I think that's another barrier in getting people kind of back on track where they want to be, is just the access to treatment and the fear of how they'll be treated by healthcare professionals, how they'll be looked at, not just for being homeless, but also for having perhaps maybe a substance use issue or just mental health problems in general, right?
And I think it's really important to also point out that being Indigenous really, really adds to that lack of access to care and that judgment. Like I'm a person, but I really want to point out that being white and homeless and dealing with addictions versus people I know that are Indigenous and the same spot in the same town with the same service, they got turned away. You could have a broken leg, you could have serious issues where you do need pain medication, or they were just going looking for wound treatment. They didn't want any medication, and being Indigenous really compounds that issue. I just want to point that out for Indigenous people. It's hard.
Yes, and people in color in general as well. There was a case, I think it was 4.5 years ago. It made the paper. So there was this young man. He was a person of color. He wasn't Indigenous, but he was a person of color, and he was having a psychotic break, and they refused him care in the ER, and he was like screaming, please help me, while they were forcefully they were removing him forcefully with security. And then I don't want to trigger anyone, his body was found the next morning in Wascana Lake. And yes, there was stigma in there, but racism also played a factor. And the family sued, and they ended up winning, of course, because there was proof for it. But that's not going to break. It doesn't matter how much money you have; it's not going to bring that tragedy.
Right.
It's not going to heal. It's not going to bring that person back. It
happens more often than we know.
Yes, definitely. It definitely does. And I think that a lot of the time it goes unreported just because of other, like, as a white tea person, I will say that I have heard other white tea people say, oh, they're just playing the race card as a way to and looking back, whenever I heard that, I wish I would have said, like, I wish I would have spoken up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you're born in an environment where you have privilege, you don't always see through the holes.
Right.
And but it's true. If you're not part of the majority and you stand up for the mistreatment of a certain group of people, it brings a lot of discomfort to people who are in the majority, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want their privilege threatened.
Right.
They don't want to be called out. They don't want to hear that they did something bad. So they just kind of invalidate and find a way to invalidate that person's claims, or they accuse them of false, trying to be a victim in some way. So it happens a lot more than what we think, but not everyone brings it to light because, unfortunately, we live in a racist country. That is a fact.
Yeah.
It was founded on racism. In Saskatchewan, where I live, there's definitely not a shortfall of racism in this province.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many intersectional factors that come with homelessness that people fall through the cracks and they don't get the care they need.
Definitely.
Anyway, that's all I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I really appreciate you having me on here, and I hope that everyone has a good Monday, even though it's Monday.
It's good to see you and hear from you again.
Thank you. I've been struggling with my own mental health in the last couple of weeks, just really stressed.
Yeah.
But I'm doing my best, and I'm not like I don't want to alarm anyone. I'm not in a crisis or anything. Just we all have our hills and valleys, right? So
Yes, we do.
okay, well, I hope you guys take care.
Thank
Okay,
you.
take
You
care.
too, Lisa.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, I think what Lisa was saying, I've often had, those thoughts back where I've like, oh, I wish I had spoken up, or I wish I had said something, or, why didn't I say something? Like, what am I afraid of, right? And there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of judgment. There's a lot of fear of, should I be speaking up for this person? Are they going to be upset if I step in? But really, you are advocating for somebody by stepping in and speaking up. So I often try to remember that and say, okay, well, if they don't like it, then they can say so and I can walk away. But it is important to speak up. It definitely is. Did somebody have their hand up in the chat? Somebody wanted to say something?
All good.
All good.
No, but I just wanted to say that I think having these kind of discussions where people are safe to bring up their own stories and not be judged, I think that helps to normalize. And I think that that's where it starts, is really changing it in people's minds, that they're free to speak, and changing it. Like, I've been in lives where people talk about vulnerability, and you can see people that sound pretty privileged, and by the end of it, they sound pretty empathetic. And I think that speaking in a way where, like for me myself, when people, will come in and say, oh, these liberals want handouts and stuff and and I go, sweetheart, I run heavy equipment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a blue collar worker. I'm out here working my butt off, and I'm still, and if I'm never homeless or vulnerable or mentally ill again, I'm going to stick up for people, because those people, they need you to. Like, if there's a reason why they're in a tough spot, it's because they don't have the support and resources. Do you think everyone wouldn't love to be working hard and be in a nice house and have a good car?
Advocacy. One thing we need is advocacy.
Absolutely.
For the
That
people
saved
that
my
don't have
life.
a voice.
Yeah.
That lady that advocated for you, she was the advocate at AWAC. That was her job.
Yeah.
She helped me get on disability because I'm so stubborn. I had family in town. I refused to couch surf. And so when I got to that shelter, day one, this was in the 2000s, before Indeed and online job applications. And I was putting out on paper applications on foot, and they would see my address as George Street, and they go, oh, and they look up the address and go, oh, you live in a shelter. So, I mean, I put out 400 resumes in 8 months, and I never got a job. So that same advocate got me on disability. I got an apartment, and once I had that, I was rocking and rolling. I had my clean shower. There wasn't bed bugs in the washing machine. I could get my laundry done. I could always have a place to charge my phone. I had a house phone back. That's how old it was. It was a house phone back then. And that advocate absolutely saved my life. She was such a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I just want you guys to know that what you are doing can make all the difference. Even just having none of my friends or family. I had one friend come and find me in that shelter, and then two more later, and not even my own family. And I probably have, 30 family members that lived in that town. And I can tell you that advocate being there and just even taking me out for coffee as a friend absolutely changed the entire course of my life
Right.
and completely put me back on track to love myself and feel like I'm worth getting back into society and not rotting on the streets somewhere. It really makes a difference.
Right on. Good for you. That's
That's
good news.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yes.
sharing. That's
It's
good
true.
news.
You never know what you're going to say to somebody that's going to make them change their life, right?
Yeah, we had one time I was working at a store in Prince George, and me and my friend, and she does a lot of outreach work in Prince George. Oh, Kat is just, she's the most amazing human being. And we see this girl, and she's sitting in kind of a rock garden on a big stone, and it is pouring, it's cold, it's miserable, and she's in a little tank top. And I go, I'm not saying anything, but I go, there's a girl sitting outside, and I go, and she kind of looked at me funny, like, oh, is she going for my Jeep? And I go, no, like, I think she needs help, Kat. Like, I'm like, I looked at her, I go, Kat, that girl needs help. And so we went and we approached her and we go, hey, we don't want to scare you, but is there somewhere we can take you? Can we help you go to a shelter? Is there anywhere we can take you? You cannot be out here in this tank top in the cold. Like, what can we do? And we took her to her mom's house, and she completely rejected her and wouldn't let her come in the house. And then we took her to a family member's house, and she went inside, and then we started pulling away, and she ran down the driveway, and she came back out and gave Kat a hug and just said, like, thank you for caring. Sometimes I forget that anyone cares. But she couldn't have been more than 16 years old, this tiny little thing. And, that we never saw her again. So I'm hoping that she was okay after that, because you could tell, like, she hadn't felt anyone loved or cared about her for a long time. You could tell.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. We go through that almost every time we go out.
Yeah.
It's difficult because you feel this, like, almost this kind of bond with these people, and then it's like, I'm never going to see them again. I won't know what happened to them, and it's kind of heartbreaking.
It is kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. And, I brought it up before. Months back, we lost a friend of ours named Crystal. She was on the street for 10 years, okay? On the street for 10 years, using drugs and everything. She got her own place. 6 days later, she overdosed. The unhoused need the transitioning. They don't just need to be thrown into a shelter, which is fine for some things, but they need the transition. They need to move. They have to learn how to trust people again. I mean, sometimes when we're giving out stuff, I can tell that people get a little nervous around us, or sometimes just me. I don't know. Maybe that's just how I feel. But, and I mean, it's founded. There's good reason why.
Yeah, and you never know that maybe you're wearing a leather coat that night, and maybe their abuser wore a leather coat. Maybe you
Right,
have
you
the
never
same a
know.
goatee, and their father had a goatee. Like, we just don't know what those triggers are. And
Yeah.
when you are outside and you might not have food, shelter, you could have lost your ID, you might not have a phone. How vulnerable it puts you! Almost like, I felt like almost like animalistic is how
Yeah.
I would describe, not to be demeaning to anybody. I felt like on my haunches, like a cat with my haunches up. I felt like an animal, like I had to fight people off like a dog, in the
Right.
corner. That's how I felt. And you never know what that person, it just being a man, maybe every man they've ever met has abused them.
Yeah.
We don't know. We have
Yeah.
no
Exactly.
idea.
Zibby, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have more recommendations for things that we do out in BC. Okay, so you can also get help for finding housing or temporary housing from friendship centers. That's across BC, so that might not be in other provinces, but that's something we do have here.
Yeah,
We
it
also
sounds
have
familiar. Yeah, friendship
we
center.
also have the Aboriginal Center or the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness, which they help you with money towards your rent as long as your name is on the lease.
This is in
There
BC?
is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
they'll help you towards your money towards your rent.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Right.
and then there is also a lot of the transitional like housing for women out here, at least in Vancouver, they will also chip towards your rent. If they cannot get you housing in their place, like obviously because Vancouver's so like it, they have a lack of housing like everywhere, but they like Vancouver in particular does that. And I can't say that everywhere else does that, but that's something that Vancouver also does.
Yeah, and that's the thing though is that there are so many services like this across Canada, and I'm it needs to get out more. I know young girls that I've talked to just on Facebook that have come to us and said, you know, I know you feed the unhoused, but would you be able to bring me some groceries? And we've done that for a few times for people. And so I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I start talking to her and I'm like, you know, can you go to your local food bank? Can you do this? Can, you know, there's this people. And she had no clue that any of this was available to her, you know, and it's amazing that I don't know how more
Well,
to put
also
it
like
out.
back when like I had babies, the food bank wouldn't give you food if you had a car.
Oh,
Right? Like it was one of those weird barriers that I was like, what do you
Wow.
mean we can't go in a car? And they're like, no, we can't go in a car because otherwise they won't give us food.
Wow.
Because then
wow.
that means that we have money for food.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And
Um,
then
Oh,
Wow.
go ahead. I was just going to say that another barrier is so living up here in rural BC is that a lot of when you start moving away from the large populated centers, you have a lot of the indigenous communities are out in rural areas. A lot of small towns are out in rural areas, and a lot of people that need these resources are nowhere near them. So the Native Friendship Center in Prince George is amazing. The shelters are great, but if you're in Burns Lake and you don't have a car and you've got a couple kids with you, if
Right.
you are in Fort St. James, if you are in Hickson, you may not have access to that. So another barrier to that is that the affordability might be a bit tougher in these big cities, but your access to care is very different in rural areas. And I mean, I'm talking you could be 4 hours from a
Mhm.
town that has more than 5, 10,000 people in it, and there's not shelters. You know, if you're not in good standing with your community, if you've had addictions issues, if you've maybe burnt your bridges a little bit, it's really, really going to give them some trouble. So just wanted to touch on that it's very different to access that because a lot of the women along that highway of tears, because that's my backyard where I grew up, a lot
Right.
of them were fleeing to Prince George to try and get away from those communities. So just wanted to point out that rural accessibility, and also there's not that even the basic advocacy out there where they're going to have any knowledge of those resources whatsoever.
Right.
It seems like you have to almost be on fire before you're going to get those supports. So
Yes.
we come at this from not a very thoughtful, proactive approach.
No.
And if we want people to have those so-called productive lives and be able to raise their kids with dignity and give them the education, and turn them into the people that we want, we really have to probably be part of these people's lives about a year before they're in trouble. Connecting with them, meeting for them, bringing the food supplies, bringing the resources. Um,
And again, it's the trust, right, Mrs. Radicals? It's the trust.
it is trust. You know, we're not succeeding until our weakest links are all
Yes.
succeeding, right? Like we're
Good
not
point.
a full solid chain that's going to tow or do anything strong until we're all succeeding. And that's every one of us,
Right.
every single one of us. And, you know, working in the unhoused community, I, I there's constantly barriers for them in every single way. I'd hear somebody say, you know, I just want to come and help clean some rooms because I don't want to use today. And if my hands are busy, and guess what? I used to clean rooms, and it makes me feel good because that's something I know that I used to be able to do. And because of work safe rules and insurance, I would have to tell them,
Mhm.
no, you can't. And actually, I need you to leave the property in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
How did I help that person?
Right.
And there's just so many easy barriers to it and there's so many easy little fixes, but we're waiting for all the people in the top to make the changes, I think. when I think we have to take control and understand that it's our money in those funding pots and we need to be the decision makers.
Yeah, it's got to come from the bottom up, you know.
It
Do we
really
think
has to be on the bottom up.
Do we think that Carney being very economically savvy, I'm wondering if he can start to catch on to some of that, that if we can help people that are a little bit more at that mid barrier level instead of that high amount of barrier level, that economically, like we know from the models in Northern Europe, we know that if he's not going to be doing it out of empathy, if they're going to take it from an economic standpoint, and if that's what it takes, maybe they'll start to realize that it's a lot easier to help that mom with a car keep groceries on her table instead of now she becomes homeless. Now maybe she's dealing with addictions. Now maybe you're losing your children. They're in the court system. And, you know, like as you fall, you lose all of those things that make you who you are, and just mentally coming back, financially too, but mentally coming back from being slipped through the cracks when really you could have helped her with groceries. You could
With
have helped out with a UBI, and it would have helped them stay in a stable spot where if you're going to look at it in an inhumane way and just say financially it's better for the country, if that's what it takes, maybe Carney will start to look at that. I hope.
Carney suggested that he was going to put money into housing, and that was something that the government needed to get invested in again. And you know, with the Trudeau government, we did see more of kind of a nod to the middle class around housing and the catalogs, but we didn't really see that piece for the unhoused that we need. Nothing with strength, anyways. So what I'm really hoping to see out of Carney is, you know, since the Harper government and Pierre Poilievre, they took away billions of dollars in housing in Canada. He took it away, you know, and sold it, and this was like low income housing across Canada that a lot of people relied on. If we could bring that back, that would be fantastic. Because if somebody has the opportunity to move into a low income house and put them in small communities, put them in big communities, you know what I mean? And give anybody the opportunity.
And in
Why?
2022, homelessness cost Canada $7.8 billion. Cost
Yep.
us seven. It's cheaper to put them in homes and help them.
And we have to remember that as financially things get tougher, what we're seeing with seniors now, imagine when millennials who don't have the access to home ownership and that equity, imagine when people in their 30s or even the Gen Zers in their 20s, when they are coming around to being seniors. And we have, like we're talking about, inflammatory disease. We're having a lot more stress on our bodies as those people are not able to work younger and younger, and we have less financial stability to rely on. How much is homelessness going to skyrocket when people my age? I have type 1.5 diabetes. If I lose a foot, I'm done running loader. I can't push it's like a clutch on a forklift. I can't hit my second brake. I can't use that machine effectively anymore. How am I supposed to, you know, go out to the field and wrench on equipment if I'm in a wheelchair?
Right.
It's not going to be feasible. And if I go back and I work in an office somewhere, I do have admin schooling, it's not going to pay rent that's $35, $45, $5,500 for a one bedroom apartment. So I think that we need to be forward thinking with this, because homelessness is going to absolutely explode as my generation ages. It's going to be terrifying. Terrifying how many people are not going to have that home, or their husband's life insurance pays their home off for them. We're not going to have that. We're not, a lot of us.
I also wanted to add they need to raise the thresholds that they cut us off for these programs. Like for low income housing, you have to make under $33,000, I think. And then in order for low okay, I'm confusing the words, but one of them is low income housing, and then there's another subsidized housing. Subsidized housing, you have to make over $44,000 a year, and I'm like, if you work too much and you're poor, then you're not gonna you're gonna take yourself, push yourself in the middle and remove yourself from low income housing and put yourself into subsidized housing.
And how many of those jobs are not stable? We don't get to work at the same job for 40, 20 years anymore. So how many people with AI coming into place, maybe someone that works in an administrative office, tech-based customer support role, where now maybe a computer takes the order at McDonald's. Maybe now they have those digital assistants that do the administration job. A lot of those people that are in that middle that are just barely maintaining, if anything happens to them, they are right on a cliff. A lot, I've known women that have gone from holding it down and being all right to one day they're laid off, their hours get cut, and all of a sudden they are on assistance or they're homeless with their kids. It's such a quick way to lose that middle class into that spot where they're in a crisis. And I mean, yes, we're helping people in a crisis and we should, but there's so many people, like, why would you not want to keep them out of a crisis? Those are usually working class people. And whether they're working at the moment or not, or what their situation is, if you can keep them somewhere that's resembling stability, it's going to keep their health better. They're going to have to access less mental health supports. You know, if they need to access the food bank to be able to keep rocking and rolling, why would we not? Look how much food we throw away. Look how much food we throw away. It's crazy.
It's a learning thing. I mean, like, we have never been able to pay attention to this until COVID, and really slow ourselves down enough to pay attention and take all this information. And now we have these great, as much as I complain about TikTok, these great opportunities for learning and sharing and understanding to come about, right? And grow from that. There's so many things we can do. One of the things I was reading about the other day, as crazy as this cycle is in history that we're all stuck in, is this comes about like 80 years, every 80 years, right? But on the other side of that is change. And these are the things we need to have these conversations now, so that when the change part comes, we can do better. And we're not all going to be going, well, my mommy's daddy and my daddy's daddy, and, you know, and we're all going to be singing that same old song. No, we're going to be at the table and we're going to be all educated and coming at it from a boots on the ground, you know, and from learning and perspective. That's how we're going to come at it with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we have to remember that shifting from major news networks that, you know, are not going to really, they're not going to be employing people that might just recently have been homeless. Like, the opportunity to have a voice on platforms like TikTok is available to everyone. Absolutely everyone. People in a war-torn country can post a video that day of what's happening on the ground in that country. Like, if they have access to it, and people here that are struggling have access to it, it takes away the elitism of creating the narrative of what's going on in Canada, because it's not just all, you know, people in, you know, nice outfits that are in the middle class living in a nice house. And on the news, on a major news network, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see the breadth and the diversity of people in this country and how they're doing, and not just, oh, we looked at some data and this is our conjecture about what we think is going on with homelessness. You're hearing it from people that have experienced it and people that are working in that field experiencing it every single day.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna end.
Yeah.
Because
we haven't had dinner yet.
It's 9:30, and yeah, we have had a day. It's been a busy day.
It's been a busy day, and thank you. I couldn't think of a better way to end it than with all of you. Like, it's amazing.
And I do agree that it takes platforms like this that we need to spread this information around.
Yeah.
I do feel as though we're very lucky to have TikTok. I know there are other platforms, but I prefer TikTok. I've met so many wonderful people on here. We have so many people that I found that are actually boots on the ground, and I didn't know. And it was just like, wow, there's so many people out here doing these things, and it's awesome, you know. And we can share ideas, and we can say, okay, well, this is what we have out here, and this is why. And you know, and I am so, like, just, you know, talking about the shelter, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, we spreading the information around on the internet is by far the best way to spread information, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, as long as it's truthful information, because we know what happens when it's not truthful. But anyways, yeah, we should get home and eat.
We're gonna head. Thank you very much for coming out, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all of you.
I'm not sure if Pacey Native is here, but I thank you so much for all the likes. I saw you up there liking our live like crazy. Yeah, thank you guys. And next week we will be back at our regular time on Sundays at 12:30 in the afternoon, and maybe this week, or even, well, we'll see what happens. But if we can, maybe we'll go for a little drive and we can show you what we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Sunday at 12:30, and it's this is typically Treaty Bird's spot. So next week she will be back with her show. So until next week, well, every day there's something on here. What day is it? Tuesday is, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure now, because I'm so used to saying the Sunday night.
Yeah.
This is Radical. Who's on tomorrow? Frontline Feminists will be on tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, so every day there's somebody on here, and that's what we're doing, spreading the word. So people for the people. News hour. Okay, perfect. So yeah, come on by and check us out again. Thank you.
Take care,
thank
everyone.
you for the likes and the gifts. Bye, the people.